Good evening, everyone. This is the meeting of the Groton Board of Education being held on August 26, 2024 at the central office. It's a regular Board of Ed meeting. Today we have President Mike Whitney, Dr. Ackerman, Superintendent Austin, myself, Beverly Washington, Adrian Johnson, and Sam Knight. And we have Ian Thomas online. And Jay Whitloff is on his way.
Matthew looks like he's online too now.
Matthew's on.
Okay, and Matthew Schulman's online also. So the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and Adrian, can you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, I forgot to mention, we have our esteemed Clint Kennedy here. We have no recognition and participation of visitors and delegations. I don't see
No.
anyone. And the next item is comments from citizens in regard to agenda items and other subjects of concern that lie within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education. This is the portion of the agenda where the board welcomes comments from citizens. Each presentation should be limited to 5 minutes or less, and citizens should, if possible, submit written comments. Presentation should be related to matters pertinent to Groton. Board members will only ask questions in order to clarify the speaker's presentation and cannot respond during the comments of citizens portion of the board meeting. Citizens should make their presentation from the podium and state their name and address. If anyone would like to address the Board of Education that's online, can you please raise your hand so we can recognize you? Yeah. I don't see anyone out there. Is anyone online, Mark?
Yeah, there's those three though there are three people in as attendees.
Okay.
One
Alright.
being Warren Cassini.
The next item is response to comments from citizens. We don't have that. Student reps, we don't have any. And we'll move right on to item 6, superintendent and administration reports.
So it never gets old to come back to school after 44 years as a teacher and leader. And today was our convocation, and Clint's going to put up a little bit of the show so I can talk to you a little bit. That's the end of the show. So we have to go up to the top. So this year, our motto is grace and gratitude. Let's start with ourselves and then pay it forward and give it to everybody else. And I think the teachers really appreciated that message. And everybody in the audience. We actually had several town councilors and we had Mayor Hendrick. I was very pleased to see them and thank them very much. I said it was really important. The teachers enjoyed seeing them, so that was a very good thing. And the next slide, I talked a little bit about grace and gratitude and what it meant. I love the third bullet the most. Gratitude is the practice of acknowledging and appreciating the positive aspects of our life, while grace is the ability to accept and forgive ourselves and others. So they kind of go hand in hand. And then I did a whole welcome aboard. The captain was there of the Navy base, Captain Curtin. He did a wonderful job. Really welcoming everybody and telling our staff how important their work is to the military child and to all children. And that, you know, the people who serve the Navy with him sometimes leave for 7 months. That was my dad and probably Mike's dad. And those, you know, spouses who are home raising the kids, it used to be all moms, but now it could be dads. You have a really big job to do all alone. And so it really matters, our teachers and our educators. So I was really pleased. And I did the whole motto about, you know, everybody on the boat has important work to do for national security, and as we do for our students. And I thanked everybody out loud, including our community and our board. And then these are some of the reflections. And I spoke about them in my long-winded self-evaluation. And it's not just the work I've done, it's the work that everyone has done. So from our teachers to our paras to, our administrators to all of you, you've all helped me with all these things. Your work has been instrumental with the K-5 implementation of curriculum reflecting the science of reading. And I can't tell you how many teachers came up to me and said they're really ready to start this and they couldn't be more excited. Building thinking classrooms, math classrooms, in the middle school, 7th grade, knocked it out of the park with growth. And those teachers all bought into this building thinking classrooms, which is really having kids do the problem solving and the teacher facilitating and listening in, and they're communicating and they're really understanding the math in a deep way. And it showed. So kudos. World language with the expansion now in 3.5. We get the carousel model done. So they start the first level in middle school, and we saw tremendous growth at the middle school level. And we saw many seals of biliteracy at the high school. So it's working. And then there's the whole idea of having these intra-district magnets and then going into an IB MYP STEAM Groton Middle and continuing the IB MYP in 9th and 10th that really foster college and career. And with that being said, our whole career pathway where freshmen will pick their P and doubling our numbers in AP, IB, and ECE and mirroring our community better at those top levels. That's what we want to see. So it's all kind of tied together. I know they call it college and career, and some people forget that it's really about career because it's finding what they're good at and what they love to do. So, and then we had the JROTC perform. And then, of course, we had our fabulous choral group, our chamber choir. And it's an honors chamber choir, and they are some team. They are really leaders in that school when I looked around the room, and their voices were beautiful. So, but all these things matter beyond academics, the sports, the music, the art, the drama. And then navigating our budget like we did with care, caution, and efficiency together. Couldn't have done it without you. Couldn't have done it without my entire staff, and including the business department, who really worked tirelessly to make sure we're in the black. There was a lot of tightening of belts. And also working with the town manager and seeing some of those impact aid for military children move over to us, that really was a benefit. I'm very gracious. I have a lot of thanks for that. So I'm very appreciative. And then, we're always looking to improve culture and climate in the district, in the schools, in our classrooms, but also in our community. Positive culture and climate is really what we're looking forward to. And then access, equity, and belonging in our schools. It's for all kids and it's for all staff. Everybody needs to have access to the programs that we have. It needs to have equity, and kids need to have that sense of belonging as does staff. And then I talked about Falcons Rise. We really haven't talked about this from pre-K to 12. We've only talked about it as the 9 to 12. But if we move to what Rise is actually about, Clint, if you want to slide that up. Oh. I know there we go. It's really about resilient individuals, innovative learners, socially aware citizens, and engaged communicators. That's what the acronym RISE stands for. And it's the vision of the graduate, but it does happen as early as preschool. And I actually, as part of our admin retreat, I had the administrators in small groups thinking about what does it look like at the elementary level and preschool level? What does it mean to rise? What does it look like at the middle school? And they call it soar, but then they thought about soaring and rising. And then what does it look like for the high school? And then I really believe our strength comes through community, commitment, and resiliency. And there's been a lot of resiliency during these past 4 or 5 years with COVID, pre-COVID, post-COVID, and everything that has been going on. And last year we called it Better Together, but I still think we are better together. And, I loved this quote from Ariana Huffington: living in a state of gratitude is the gateway to grace. So, sometimes we forget, and just remembering to be grateful and thankful for the little things in life too. So that was my message. And it's always a very exciting day to be back together again. And you could feel it, you know, it's good vibes. So,
What did the principals or whoever you asked, what does RISE look like from elementary school? What were their responses?
they talked a lot about their intra-district magnets and how there's a lot of problem-solving approach. There's a lot of STEM ingredients and STEAM ingredients and kids creating, and even through their play and ingenuity, they are really communicating with one another. They're doing all of those things. You know, there's that socialization aspect in there and the resiliency, like not to give up, that it's not just a worksheet that they have to fill in. They've got to actually solve a problem or create something. So they talked about that, and middle school then kind of continued on with that, you know, all of their courses are really pre-pathways to the high school. So it was a good conversation.
What did the high school say?
Well, they talked about kids all feeling like they could attack or tackle some of the career pathways or some of the advanced courses. I know some people have asked about honors courses, but really with some of the international baccalaureate courses and some of the AP courses, if they don't have a chance to do one of those, they might not be as prepared for college. So even 10th and 11th graders, we'd like to see them give it a try. So,
Any questions about the opening of schools? No. Okay, I do have a quick question. Now, today, are there only teachers there? Do you invite everybody? That's always been my,
yeah.
do you? Because if we're saying it's everybody has a role, everybody has the custodians mean a lot and the parents mean a lot. And then we have opening day and we only invite the teachers. That's always been a pet peeve of mine.
So it's an opening day and anybody is welcome, but a lot of people, like the secretaries, are back at the ranch doing their work, getting ready for opening of school. The paraprofessionals are paid for a day's work, but it's usually tomorrow that they're paid, but they can certainly come in for the convocation and for the opening and for breakfast. So you typically see more of the teachers and administrators, you see all of them, but you don't necessarily see, because custodians are busy with their last minute cleaning up, you know. So you're right. When I say access, while they're welcome, they might not have access because they're busy doing other things.
But it's only like 2 hours.
Yes, it's not even.
It's not
I think I was
even.
done in 3 minutes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they could come.
They could,
Yeah.
they could.
It just seems like, we say.
Yeah, maybe we
has
need a better job to say you're
touch
certainly
with
welcome.
a child in
Yeah.
school, the custodians have a part in the school life of the child, that the kitchen people do, the dietary people.
Yeah.
And then we have the opening day and then we don't invite them.
Yeah.
So. Or we invite them, but we don't pay them.
Well, there are some people there being paid, and I don't know, they might have come into the auditorium. There were some people that were working in the school, but anyways. All right, operational review. I've only seen the plan from Trumbull. I know that Ray has a little more information and actually sat with me today to look at some of the ingredients of this thing. But right now, we really don't have the capacity, and I've shared that with John Burt, that right now it's really, we've got to get a business manager. And while we have two really good quality people, they haven't had time in school finance. So it will take, if one of them does, make it to the last round, it will take some work and some effort, having Ray and having his availability to help with the transition is really pretty critical. But, we're going to be preparing. I guess, Ray, if you can talk a little bit about the things you have on your plate right now and the team. I
Actually-
gave them great kudos for the work they've done and your
They did.
work.
The team has done a fantastic job, but some of the things that we have on our plate, we have to wrap up the year-end submissions over the next couple of weeks. We also we're pulling, and you've probably seen it, a plethora of items that we're working with the auditors on, we're trying to pull out. We've also got an update starting 10/1 on the operating system, which is required so that the system stays operable. It's nothing that it's nothing new. It's like many systems. You have to run up certain types of upgrades and updates. Otherwise, it just doesn't stay supported. Um, there's a God. I'm trying to think of. We're in the
Well,
middle
I
of
would
cross
say
training.
also, we're gonna be working on FY26, especially with the ad hoc committee's timeline.
Right.
So, you know,
So I mean, there's much more than most people think going on right now in the business office, and we're tight. I mean, we're looking for a business manager, and we're also looking. We have a retiree that we're looking to replace. So there's several positions that are key in there, and I don't think it's the right time, to be honest with you, to be looking for a process program that's out there, but it's not my call. So that's just my 2 cents. So you've got a lot of work that you need to get done at this moment.
I have shared that with John Burt, just for him to
Yep.
realize that
Mhm.
things are really pretty critical at this time, and I want to make sure we're doing the day job before we do an extra job. So, looks like Ian has his hand raised.
Ian?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to understand, are we at a point where we're discussing this as an idea? Or I understand what you're saying, but long story short, I think it is something that we should look into and at least make a request to look at how we could fund one at the earliest opportunity where one could be done with the least amount of impact. Now, of course, there's always going to be some kind of impact. I understand that. But looking at it, I understand we're looking for business managers as well, but looking at it from like a professional point of view, in a previous career, I was a professional mariner. And, as someone who's like hired on to be the captain of a vessel, one of the first things you do is a thorough inspection and rigging test and systems check of the vessel that you're going to be responsible for. So, I was always far more comfortable when I was coming onto a vessel that had recently been inspected, had recently had some work done, had recently just kind of gone through some sort of rigorous yard period where I knew there was a reset of certain gear. I was always very apprehensive about getting on boats that, had some dubious history of some kind or some other longstanding issues or had just gone through something rather traumatic and had not been thoroughly addressed. So, I don't think a business manager would necessarily be put off by the idea of an operational review being done, especially given the amount of discussion and the issues with the audit from FY24, as far as like just having one show up late and having to go through all that post inspection. So I think it's an essential thing that we should consider as a board. And if we have to, because there's a lot of aspects to it. One is timing, two is funding. And, as we look at budgets moving forward, we will have to make either a request for funding from the town council or put it into a budget that's coming up. And then also when we hear the inevitable resistance to an increase in the budget, explain that part of this increase is the operational review. So I think we do have to start looking forward and looking at a way to build it into the anticipated program for the next couple of years. At some point, I feel it needs to happen because again, back to like the professional point of view, I'm not as a new member, just speaking for myself, I'm not necessarily comfortable like taking command of or having like some sense of ownership of this whole procedure without having a firm understanding and have an objective perspective an outside point of view come in and give us a set of recommended policy or procedure changes that they may feel. There were some good, there's some good suggestions in the audit report that we just received regarding the FY24 budget, and a lot of those things are, a number of those were already being looked at by some of the board members here and the ad hoc budget procedure committee. And a number of those items were also identified by our interim business manager as areas of concern. So, you know, having outside perspectives involved, I think, is a good way for just kind of resetting the odometer and giving everyone, especially, like, again, just speaking for myself as one of the new members, but you
Can
know,
I
it
ask
would
a
make me
clarifying?
feel, well, let me just finish my thought, please.
Okay, all right.
You know, I would just feel far more comfortable having an objective diagnosis done at some point in the very near future, because we sort of got onto a train that was already moving, and we haven't had much chance to really pause, reflect, and consider, you know, analyze exactly how, you know, what could be done better and how. But yeah, okay, so that was my thought. Your question?
Thank you. Go ahead.
I just had a clarifying question, Ian. Are you talking about the work that the auditors have begun for FY24 and their suggestions, or are you referring to the FY23 that was just completed and their suggestions, or both?
Both, all together, like everything that
Okay.
has been discussed over the past many months, ever since
Okay.
the FY23 to 24 budget audit was not, or the FY23 budget audit was not completed on time. And then, you know, FY24 had the overages that now we've managed to compensate for, it seems. But again, like, structurally, systematically, I have great concerns, and I for one would be greatly comforted to have an operational review done in the very near future. And also, I don't want it to be paid for in such a way that impacts our ability to deliver our mission statement, which is teaching and learning. So I think in some ways we have to work cooperatively with the town in order to make sure the funding does not come out of, if it's worked into our budget, then it needs to be sort of handled as a separate item alongside our rest of our regular budget. It can't be embedded in our budget to a point where we're removing services or like counterbalancing teaching and learning supports. Does that make sense?
Any other comments about the operational review? Mike?
Yes, so this is the place we're talking about operational review tonight, seems like. So, I hear what you're saying about the timing of it, and I couldn't agree more. We don't even have a financial business manager in place. So it would have to wait for a while. I do see the importance of understanding the inner workings of the budget. So I'm supportive of that too. And just broadly speaking, I'd want to see any process going forward, whenever it does, for the Board of Ed to be in a leadership role of this, whether that be jointly with the town council or by ourselves. Either is fine with me, but I don't want to see us in a subordinate role, because it's the Board of Education, this is our schools, and we have the most to potentially learn from it and gain from it. And so we should have, a seat at the table that's at the same level as everyone else. Thank you.
Understood.
Mhm.
Adrian?
Yes, I agree with your statements there, Mike. I think that if we do an operational review, it should be the board overseeing what we think needs to be reviewed. I mean, 9 people were, elected here or serving here as a board. And I think there's enough intelligent thought to be able to figure out what we need. And I also agree we should just look into funding it and doing it a little later. Letting a new business manager get his feet under him or her.
For her.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Dean, you have anything?
I will.
Okay. Matthew,
Thank you. I concur with Ian that this is a matter of great importance and should happen as quickly as possible. I also see the reality of bringing a new person on board taking time. And I think we can thread the needle, if this board so wishes, by making a commitment to start an operational review no later than 90 days after the new person comes on board. This should give the person a chance to become seated and comfortable in his or her role, and also communicate our commitment to the operational review. Thank you.
I think that's what most people are saying. They don't want to do it immediately. They want to wait until the new person gets on board. So 3 months, 4 months from when he gets on board. I think that's what most people are saying.
Whatever the time frame is that the board judges is appropriate is fine with me. But I think probably not tonight, we should pick a time frame and articulate that time frame. Thank you.
Well, the only thing I would say is that I think we should definitely wait until the business manager gets hired and he gets his feet wet a little bit. And then with his direction and Ray's, because Ray will still be here with us, then we should move forward and do the plan when we're going to do it and how we're going to fund it and what we want to see in the operational review. I think the only plan we have to go by is the Trumbull plan. And so, but I think we should let the new business manager get his feet wet and get accustomed to go ahead, Dean.
So I prefer it to happen sooner rather than later.
What's your definition of sooner?
I don't have a specific definition. Matt was kind enough to offer a 90-day period.
Okay.
One could argue that that's arbitrary, but 90 days looks nice. You see that very often. 90 days, 60 days, 120 days. It's true, whoever comes in is going to have his or her hands full. I still would like to see it early rather than later. An operations review, would that involve more than just the business office? Because if it does, and whether it does or it doesn't, we could still talk about it and plan it. So what we're saying is we're not ready to get going on it until the business manager has his or her feet under, on the ground. Fine. I'm making up metaphors. We can still think about it and talk about it beforehand. Why wait until the business manager's been here for a while and then say, okay, now we should talk about what we're going to do with an operations review. We can have it all in place and ready to go and have it all talked out and then pull the trigger when that person's comfortable. 90 days, or we can set a time limit on it if we want to.
Okay.
Ray, do you have anything you want to share?
Other than you don't have it in your budget. I'll be very honest. It's not in the Board of Ed budget.
Ray, did we ever find out how much Trumbull paid for their operational review?
It's somewhere, it's around $75,000. This is what John sent us,
Okay.
somewhere in that neighborhood.
And do you know of anybody else besides Trumbull who's done one of these?
That's the only one that I'm aware of. I can put the word out through CASBO to see if anyone else has done it.
Yeah.
But they're the only one that I'm aware of. And well, I have to keep comments to myself about it
How does
because
it compare to an audit? Like we've just been through the 23, we're going through the 24, or it, we'll be going through the 25. How does it compare to an audit?
basically what they do is they walk through, they sit down, they interview people, they sit and watch what you do, how you do it. They analyze every step, every process. To be honest with you, if you hire the right business manager, they should be able to do that internally. I used to do that as a living for manufacturing. I did process improvement, supply chain improvement. So I know if you get the right person, they can make improvements. I don't know. I'm going to keep most comments, my personal comments, to myself because I might upset some people, and I don't want to go there. I'm being very honest, very blunt. I think you'll be wasting your money, in my own opinion, but that's my opinion as a business manager and as a former board chair.
Go ahead, Adrian.
I just have a quick question for Ray. Do you have any idea how much staff time the operational review took? So I'm just wondering if it's going to take somebody in the business office, or, you know, how many hours of staff time it would take.
That I don't know. It depends on the person doing the interviewing. It depends on the person that's doing the audit. But also it depends on what their findings are and what they suggest. I do know this. They finished the audit, I believe, in 2021, the fall of 2021. And I do know they're still working on implementing those changes in Trumbull. They have not finished it. The town hasn't finished it. Side the Board of Ed, still working on those modifications that they need. Have they done quite a few? Yes. Anything red still needs to be worked on. Yellow is being worked on. And I believe green is completed if you go to the website. So, and this came right from one of the people that are actually doing it.
And one more question. There's different, am I in the understanding that there's different levels of an operational review that the district could do as what we're looking at, if we're just looking at the business office, or if we're looking at staffing or other things?
If I were to do a business review, I'd look at the business office. I'd also take a look at the staffing, the relationship between the business office and the town's relationship with the business office as well. What communications are going on? How can we improve things? The timeliness of different programs. I mean, it's a full gamut. If you wanted to do a full-blown operation review, it should include not only what we do, but what the town does, how the town relates to our process, and how we relate to the town's process. So to me, there's a level of, you have the 10,000-foot level review, and then you can really get into the weeds, and it could be a 6-month to a 12-month just interview process. And then the deeper you go, the more it's going to cost you. So
Yeah,
that's 75,000. If you were to encompass the full program, I know I made a very good living doing that when I was, and I'm going back around 2005, 2007, and I can give you some very good references. Mossberg Firearms right down the road was one of my clients. Another one in Westbrook was one of my clients. So we did. I fully understand what they're doing and what they're looking for. This is why I said sometimes you bite the bullet, you jump into it, you do it, because you're failing all over. My personal opinion, I don't think you're failing. I think you need some work, but I don't think you're truly failing here. We need to do some cross training. We need to get the processes updated that we have. We need to get procedures created that we have. And then we can go through, and if you still want to do a process review, then you do it. But right now you need to get things updated and clarified.
Yeah, so to me, it seems like there should be a lot of discussion on what an operational review, if the board agrees to do one, should be, and what it should look into, and what it should focus on. So it sounds like it just calling for a review is going to take a little bit of well thought discussion.
And what the town has proposed, I mean, there's some good thought in there. I mean, I'm not saying it's not good thought. I'm just thinking at this point in time, having steered a ship, having made the changes to modify ships, there's a time and a place. And before you get on that ship, if I were coming here as a business manager, and somebody would come in and say, oh, by the way, we're going to hire somebody to go and tell you what we're doing wrong so you can fix it, I would say, maybe I don't want to work here. I'll be very honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's I'm an old grumpy fool. So maybe that's my way of looking at it, but I would be very blunt and upfront.
Yeah. Mike?
Thank you. I just want to point out, sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle, but the years that they're talking about, the town, including us, every year had a clean audit. Right. And so what we're focusing on from the last one is the kind of recommendations for areas of possible improvement, nothing mandated, we met all the requirements as a town, as a school system. But Ray, thank you for bringing up the point that, yeah, the scope would be well served. We'd be well served by a scope that includes the interactions of the town and the board and the school system in general.
I think the
Um,
scope should be developed jointly, as you're saying. I mean, I
Yeah.
totally agree. If you're going to do it, at least do it as a joint effort.
Exactly. And that's where I see that real value of a true partnership between town council and the Board of Ed, and of course, the town officials and the school administration and staff too. And because getting that whole picture of how things work is quite useful. Some things that I'm still, even after being in the RTM for years and years, coming up to speed on is exactly which accounts go straight to the schools, which have to go through the towns, which they hold on to, which we think should automatically come to us. And that's been a topic, but that's part of the operational review, because these are our finances that we're talking about. And then just I think we could find this even without an operational review, that like the free and timely flow of information anyway there are places where that can be improved.
Mhm.
So,
In both places.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Ackerman, you want to say anything, or you all set?
I have my hand up.
Okay, I know, but I want the people that haven't spoke to speak before you do, Ian. Do you have anything you want to add? No, thank you. Thank you. All right, you have anything different to add, Ian?
Well, one, no, well, as I do, but I do want to just reiterate the point that, I think there's a lot of value in the clean slate idea. And there's a difference between telling people how to do things versus like getting recommendations from an objective perspective. And the point I was trying to make is, yeah, like if I was going to take over a vessel that had been through a traumatic event, I would want a full survey. I'd want a full rigorous like Coast Guard inspection and vessel structural survey of the vessel. So that, if we want to continue grinding that analogy, we can. But I do just want to voice, align my comments, I guess, mostly with like with Matt Schulman and Mike Whitney and Adrian and Dean, where it's like I think we need to put it on the board somewhere, and we need to start working it in the process. It sounds to me that there's some consensus here, but there's also a lot of nuance that needs to be discussed. So I think it would be greatly valuable to for the chair or the vice chair to organize a special meeting where we can discuss this in greater detail. Because I know we have a number of other things on the agenda tonight. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to discuss here, and from the communications I've received and that were mentioned earlier tonight, it seems like the town wants to be a partner on this. So as far as the funding goes, I understand it's not in our budget now, nor would it necessarily have to be if we were working cooperatively with the town on this issue. So, there are ways that the town could fund it, but we could be working jointly with them as far as managing the scope and receiving the review and, analyzing the outcomes and figuring out exactly what it's trying to tell us. So, I appreciate Matt's suggestion of like a 90-day window after the hiring of the new business manager. And again, as a business manager, I understand what Ray's saying, but I'm just looking at there's different styles and different ways of doing things. But just as someone who worked, on as a professional that went from place to place that depended on structural systemic things to perform my job. I just, I feel like if I was a business manager looking for a job and had witnessed what's been going on with, the Groton School District over the past couple of years with these audits and the shortfalls, then I think it would, if it was me in those shoes, carrying those certifications, I would say, yeah, I want to, have a clean slate, and get like a, firm ground and have like, the backing of an objective perspective on this. And, and now speaking as the chair of the ad hoc budget procedure committee, it also would help us, I think, in the long run as a board, because as we're going through those policies and procedures and kind of, thumbnail sketching things out and then like doing some research, having an operational review to the degree that was done in Trumbull, which, I read that document, I scanned through it and analyzed a good bit. I like that rigor. I like that level that's in that document. I think that's where we need to go. But I'm also like, I want to have the conversation. I want it to be a board decision. And I think we have an opportunity to work with the town cooperatively and collaboratively, which, I think is something that's desperately needed at this point in time as well, because there's, a sense of acrimony at this point as far as the way things have developed over the past many months. So, I want to move past that as elected representatives. Like we have a responsibility to the community to work as collaboratively and cooperatively as possible. So, I would encourage the executive leaders of this board to schedule a special meeting at the earliest opportunity so that we can discuss this, in the detail that it deserves. Thank you.
Jay?
Yes, hi. I'm sorry that I've been detained and can't be there in person, but each of you should have been polled by now by Joyce about a special meeting for September 3rd to replace the Finance and Facilities meeting. And the purpose of that meeting would be to discuss an operational review and more in depth. And I'm hoping between now and then that everyone would have an opportunity to look at the materials from Trumbull and get a better idea of how that went. And I think I agree that part of the package should include something perhaps that starts after the beginning of the year. I think we should include in the review whether the business office is properly staffed or whether we need, and also that there would be funding for temporary staff during the review itself to make sure that the vital functions of the district aren't disrupted by the review. And so those are the kinds of things I hope we can discuss in depth at the special meeting. And I'm hoping everybody has already been contacted about that, even though it hasn't been officially posted yet.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for your comments. Next is a potential shortfall.
FY25. So I want you to know that our nearly $500,000 has come in from DoD supplemental. And my recommendation is to put that in our operating fund for the nurses. We also received another $175,000 for military children with severe disabilities. And that needs to go by law. Superintendent is responsible for making sure every ounce of military impact aid money for special ed kids goes through special education budget. And so I've made that known. I've let John Burt know that because he has been very helpful with this year's impact aid for military children and seems to understand that that does need to come to us. And I need to make sure that it goes through special education. There might have been funds in the past. I haven't really done a thorough investigation of that, but I do know that this year that's part of the resolution in this year's budget that helped support us in coming in the black. So I do look forward to monitoring this budget ever so carefully and looking for other future resources that can help support us so that we can, make sure that we're properly funded in that way.
Hey, Susan, just for clarification, that 175 has not arrived yet. It's
Okay.
due in September.
Yeah, thank you.
You're
Right. We know it's on its way.
Any comments or questions about the
Yeah, so the special ed money that's going to be coming in, that will be directed directly into special ed to,
By law,
to,
it has to be.
to service those children that are in
Right.
sped. So we were not using that anywhere else in the budget.
No, but it can go through special ed. And there could be offsets to that, perhaps. You know, just like at the end of the year, we saw that some of the learn bills didn't come in as high. And so some of those encumbered funds don't always come in at that exact same amount. So
All right.
we'll be watching that carefully.
Any other, Mike?
Yes, so you mentioned, so this is for this year, FY 25.
Mhm.
And you mentioned the 500,000 could go towards nurses. That still leaves us, what, 700,000 short? Is, and maybe that's what we're talking about, the potential shortfall.
Right.
Are there thoughts on, well, I'm just bringing it up. We still need to do something about that.
Right.
And I'm
We gotta find that.
wondering what we should do if we
So I'm
implement more
still in
funds.
conversations with John Burt. I mean,
Yeah.
we have been in kind of communications recently about how we can make this work. So I know he's away on vacation, but when he comes back, we will be meeting. So we can talk some more about how that's going to work. And I don't have any answers yet, but I know that we've got open communications, which I appreciate.
And so is there a ticking timeline here where we'd need to get the funds in place for that?
No, I think,
Yeah.
Ray, can you talk to that? I mean, having that DOD funds to start the year is certainly very helpful.
Yeah.
That'll
And-
probably take us 60, maybe 90 days.
Right.
Hopefully, and by that time, we should have something worked out with the town, working with them to.
And because we have HSAs, I think some of that fund, I think it's a couple $100,000 at least, is with the health care. So that, I don't know if there's a potential health care reserve piece that could help support that, but I'll talk to Ray about that and talk to John about that. So it might not be quite that. when
Okay.
It's all said and done.
Because if we do have to ask for a supplemental to
Mhm.
support the nurses or other things for that matter, I now fully appreciate the long timeline there is to sometimes it stalls, but even if it didn't, it would take a long time to work through the town council and the RTM.
Good point.
Mhm.
Ian, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I would align my comments and concerns with Mike there, and Adrian, as far as, looking at funding for the nurses. That's something that is we definitely need some clarity on. And it sort of ties back into the impact aid question, which, again, I would like to have the board and the town to have a very clear understanding over what the best practices are for those funds, and where we're receiving guidance from the executive authority of those funds saying, well, this is what we recommend doing, or this is the way that we intended them for them to work, because we received a lot of information about those funds over the past couple months, some that indicated that they should be coming straight to us, and others that indicated contrary to that. So as I asked for in the very beginning of this whole thing, I just want to see a fair, firm, and consistent approach to dealing with the impact aid funds. And while it's great that we got the special education funding and the DoD supplemental and all that kind of came together at the last minute here to resolve the concerns of the FY24 budget, that we can't depend on year to year. What we can depend on is a fair, firm, consistent understanding of what these funds are intended to do and how they're intended to be treated. If it goes to the town and then to us, great. Then let's just have that firmly understood on the paper, and in a written, procedural manual of like, this is how it's handled. It comes in, and within this many days, it's placed here, and then it goes there.
Okay, thank you.
That is one concern. And then like the nurse thing again, like I hope these communications are being documented in some form or fashion to make sure that everyone is very clear on what one side understands to be the agreement and what the other side appears, feels the agreement is. Because again, in the past, we've kind of got caught in the telephone game where, one party was thinking one thing and the other party was thinking another. And then as time revealed, the truth was something else entirely. So, I just want to see, I just want to get ahead of the curve on this. So like, if we need to talk about the $700,000, let's get that on the table now and start opening that line of communication. I'm glad to hear that the superintendent's doing that, but I'm hoping that there are some formalized approaches to these communications, where they are being memorialized in some fashion and there's verification of understandings. So that's all I got to say about that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Adrian?
Yeah, I guess I just have some questions. So have we contracted with nurses at this point? So have we added that into the budget, into our budget?
We will be adding the 500,000 that has come in. They have been given, they're not contracted through a union. They've expressed that they would like to go that way like they had been, but they did get a letter of agreement of what their salaries are. So yes, they're going to be working for us. And I had gone through the town manager's office at the time in April to make sure that he had read the documents and had agreed to that too. So
Well, they didn't, the town manager, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
That's
off
right.
if I did, but the town manager, I mean, they didn't fund the nurses. Now we have to fund them, correct?
well, it was funded, but not, I mean, it was funded, but other things were taken off because it was down to 4.8% and then up to 6 point.
Yeah, they added
Yeah.
$1.2 million back for the nurses,
Well,
the town council. I know they can't tell you what to do with your money, but they did. They did. However else we look at it, they did on paper said, we're putting back $1.2 million for the nurses.
But
So
But I
did-
know they can't tell us what to do with the money, but they did say that.
well, the nurses weren't in our budget.
Right, they weren't in.
They were clearly never in our budget. Then they were always in the town's budget before. So when we pushed our budget forward, it wasn't there. And I mean, we don't have to go around, how that happened again. But I guess my question just goes back to, if we are paying for the nurses now, the town paid for them last year, we're paying for them this year, we're adding a little bit in excess of $1 million into our budget because we have to, and I'm not talking about the money that's coming in, because this is money that we're committing to go out. So I'm just wondering if basically we're committed to a certain number at this point and what that number is for the year.
it's about 1.2 million. 200,000 is really with health savings reserve. So I've been talking to Lori about how we can make that work, being an HSA. And then, so it's really about $1 million that is salaries.
All right.
Going out. And it's for our nurses, but also our aides that are in the nursing office. And we really only have one per building with a substitute. And then by law, the town has to support a nurse at Sacred Heart. So I've already said to John that should come because, and then there is a grant. He didn't know about the grant, but there is a grant that reimburses the town for taking care of the Catholic school. So I just think I need to get together with him after, he gets back from vacation to kind of work on the details with Denise, and Lori, who really are understanding this problem and to really show what needs to happen, so it is the town's responsibility to pay for the nurse who's at Sacred Heart.
Mhm.
And then they get something back from it.
So the town covers that nurse or we cover that?
Well,
board
right
then?
now, we're covering it, but the town should cover it.
And then the town will get the money. Excuse me.
Well, yeah. All right. So, all right. Well, thank you.
But I'm going to be
Nice.
talking to him about it, and I have hoping that we can work it all out.
do we have nurses on board for the first day of school?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
'Cause
They're
there are
already,
people out there that
they're
don't
already
have
in
our
the buildings
nurses.
doing the job. And there are nurses that have been working in our buildings for years. And so they're wonderful and they know our buildings, they know our kids. So we're thrilled to have been able to have them continue with us. So
Yeah, I would just like to say that no one thinks we should get rid of any nurses. I
Mm-mm.
don't believe, I haven't asked everybody else here. And we're very happy that the nurses that have been with us, at
Yeah,
least,
thank you.
I don't know if they've all are coming back, but that they're staying with us. So there's going to be some consistency and staff that knows our kids. So I think it's great that they're coming back and that, you know, we are paying them. I was more asking from the budget side of things, how we're paying for it. So thank you, nurses.
Thank you. nurses. Thank you. All right, next is the reports and information from staff.
Excuse me, Bev?
I have my hand up.
Oh, okay, you have something different to say?
Well, Bev, first off, I'd rather you not, I mean, if I'm going to reiterate a point, that's great. That's up to me to decide what I say. But like what I wanted to say was that, Adrian brings up a great point. I mean, I also am glad to hear that we have the nursing situation. We have an angle on it and we have people on staff already. That's great. But like, I don't feel like the board was really informed as thoroughly as they should have been on the ongoing process of what's been going on and what's being discussed. And as much as I can appreciate the superintendent reaching out and establishing, some sort of arrangement and clearing up misunderstandings with the town manager, I mean, what is that going to look like? Like that idea about the grant that is covering the nurse over there, and then that's going to free up some money for the town. They're going to get reimbursed. That's all well and good, but again, it's just really hard to understand without like a clear document of some kind that explains what's happening. And to follow up on Adrian's point, I'm greatly concerned because there's $700,000 that we're committing somewhere, like, and say the $500,000 from the DoD supplemental comes in, and that's great. That covers that portion of the nurse, but there's still $700,000 that has to be taken from somewhere else in the budget in order to cover them. That also is something that we should be involved with as far as understanding what's going to be impacted. So I just want to see more clarity as far as like, what's on the table for that. Thank you.
Okay, Matthew?
Thank you. Susan, could you give a little more clarity or color, if you will, on the reviews either in our congressional or Department of Education? Some mention was made earlier about wanting some clarity on what our formal relationship is. Do we know when we're going to hear from either of those sources?
I did get a call from 202 today, but I was too busy to pick it up, but I think it's Washington. As soon as I do, Matthew, have some clarity, it's about as clear as mud. So we do know though, and I was able to establish that those funds for military children with special needs by law needed to come to the district, and that the superintendent is responsible for putting it into special education. So I think I made that clear. I've tried to make it clear to you all and to the town manager, and he certainly assisted us with that. So I've got that information so far. And as soon as we do get clarity, and Floyd has been helping with that too, he's done a lot of research, but he also finds that there's some things that are unclear. But for DoD supplement and for children with military children with disabilities, we feel like we do have clarity, but I'm still kind of waiting for a resolution on the other. I don't have
Thank you.
anything in writing yet that's really clear.
Thank you.
Is it your goal to get something in writing?
It's
As
always
the
my
city-
goal, and I work tirelessly.
Thank you.
Yes, round the clock.
So is it the will of the board to start talking about where we're gonna get this $700,000 from?
Yeah.
Yes.
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 All right, well, I think Jay's online, so Jay has that.
I thought they gave us the money. I thought they gave us the money.
Jay, did you want to add anything to this conversation?
I think that we do need to study and talk to Ray. I have not been wanting to put a lot of pressure on Ray with his wrapping up the last fiscal year, and I know we'll be discussing some of the fruits of his labor later in the meeting. But I think we do need to take a long, hard look at the current budget and see what options are available.
And it may not be going to the town council, maybe we might be able to find something in our budget, who knows? We could always be.
I would say that Mr. Burt did give us reassuring news that there was $3 million in the health savings reserve. But I had asked for a report because we haven't really had one since Cindy Landry. So I'd like to see that. That was very reassuring because we were under the assumption that we had used most of that health reserve. So that was, would you agree, Jay? That was reassuring news.
Yes, but again, I did ask to see that in writing. And so they are working on the report
Mhm.
to reconcile the health account. And
Right.
I look forward to seeing that, as soon as possible.
Did they give us any sort of estimated time of delivery for that, roughly speaking?
No.
I didn't get a date, no, and he's on vacation right now, but I definitely am going to keep asking for that. But I'm told that it is being prepared.
Adrian?
I just have a quick question, probably for Ray. Who manages those health accounts? Does our business
No.
No,
the
it's
town
managed by the
manages?
town.
All right.
Okay, next is Director of Finance. You're on again, Ray.
That's it. I'm done. No, we did enough tonight. Let me get to my stuff here. Okay, within the packet, you've got my narrative. And in the very first sentence, it says, due to year-end processing, we will provide you, I want to make sure I'm on. We will provide the utilities dashboard and the healthcare dashboard at the September meeting, not the September 3rd special meeting, by the way. If you also notice, my staff has been working very hard to clear up that deficit of in the in our budget. We now have a surplus of approximately $77,000. Okay, so we're doing well. We have not made the healthcare our last healthcare payment. We're going to be discussing that with again with John and Dee to see what we want to do. And we're actually sitting on it a little bit longer this week because I want to make sure I get no surprises before I submit my EFS. So far, knock on wood, everything is pretty good. We validated with all our major vendors and service providers that they have no more open purchase orders or invoices, and we were able to release some of the funding, and that's how you ended up with the surplus. What we thought we were going to spend based upon estimates early last year, those estimates did not come to full fruition. And some of the, like, for example, transportation estimates, because of children moving to different areas, special needs children not requiring as much transportation, we actually had a savings there. So that was good. There was also some savings in the healthcare, the special needs services line of about an additional 40 or 50,000 toward year end. So all together, our staff did probably some of the best work I've seen in any Board of Ed business office in my tenure. So kudos to them. And as you see in the last paragraph, I want to thank them all for the excellent job that they've done. It was unbelievable the amount of work that they did. We also met with the auditors. Things are going along well. I've also attached a copy of some of the work that we'll be doing with the auditors. It's about 2.5 pages worth of detail there. The first, I'm going to say quarter page is about done and completed. We did that in July and mid-August with the auditors. Now we're pulling together all the other information that you see on here, hopefully getting it submitted. Thank you. Hopefully getting it submitted as they request it. But we've already started working on some of that as well. Okay. Thank you, Clint, for posting that. We're also doing some cross training. We've set aside some time about every 2 weeks, and we're doing some cross training due to retirements. We really have to get moving on that cross training process. So we're working on that now. It's time consuming. We're in year end, as I said. We're also with the audit. It takes time. You have to split out time, and we're playing catch up in there due to illnesses and things. But we're back. We're slowly getting back on schedule. I'm hoping to finish my year end close with the state, not the audit, but getting our state filings done by this Friday. Although I do have till September 3rd as a cushion because of the holiday weekend. We're working very hard to try to get it finalized by Friday evening and get it certified by the superintendent so that at least I can sleep over the weekend. And as you notice, there's very little that's left encumbered. You show 1.684 million encumbered. Most of that is the last payroll that we're processing currently. We have that going, and then the other 372,000 is the health insurance premium that we're still sitting on. The rest of it is there's not much there, if you notice. So they've done one heck of a job cleaning up what normally takes until almost October to clean up, but we were trying to fight for that deficit reduction. So and it paid off. If there's any questions, I'll entertain them.
Ray, do you think any surplus that we have, would you recommend we put in the non-lapsing fund?
Definitely.
Okay.
I would wait till early September, your first official meeting, to request that move into the non-lapsing, whatever that final deficit number is. That way, in case let's say we need something to fix a boiler or we have a major plumbing issue, at least you've got the money you can tap. You won't be hitting your budget.
Good advice. We know that better than ever after this year.
Any questions for Ray, Mike?
Yeah, so thank you, and it's very big relief to see that the deficit seems to be gone, right? And we're talking about what to do with a albeit small surplus, so that's wonderful to hear. So I understand that the sum total of the FY24 budget is now showing this small surplus, but then if you look at the object code breakdown, of course, there are some areas that are above, some areas that are below, as we've been tracking. I'm a newbie on the board, and I think this question's been asked, before, but do we have to approve transfers to get the object codes all sorted out? I mean, now I understand that you have to wait to the end of the year and this time beyond it to know where the numbers settle out to get those firm numbers. But is this a time to pursue transfers?
If you like, we can. I mean, it's whatever the board wishes. I don't like doing them. It creates unnecessary work on my business office. If you want it to make it so that it looks pretty, we can do that. I mean, it's up to the board. I would, if that's your wish, I'll draw up a list of requested transfers, where we're going to take the money from, where we're going to move the money to, so that we can balance out the negatives and reduce the positives and add them to reduce the negatives. So
any sense, though, I know that we've used in the past when we go to budget for the following year, we use what was budgeted and what was actually spent. And that really helps us to figure out for the next year what we need to do. So.
That's the one reason why my last position, we did not do that.
What's that?
In my last position, we did not make the transfers for that simple reason. We want to know exactly what we spent. I don't want to see money being moved and deficits, because next year we may, with the money we took from one line, we may end up running over because we reduced that line this year. Or we may transfer it from a personnel line. You were not able to hire people to fulfill those positions this year, but we're going to take the money out of it. It's going to look like you have a reduced budget there, because when we present the budget to the users, they don't see those transfers. They see what was spent. So they're comparing what their future spend is going to be based upon what they did spend. Now, having said that, we should be looking at a zero-based budget, which I know we do for the most part. So if I need 10 people to do a job, I'm going to budget for 10 people. But then you're going to see, well, why was last year's budget 50,000 and it should have been 150,000? So you're going to see large gains.
During budget time, because we get asked those questions, right?
I mean, I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. Let's put that.
I don't think Mike's finished with his questions.
No, I actually just follow up on that. So, yeah, I did gather that it's not past practice of this board to do year-end transfers to get the objects codes all sorted out. And from what your comments today and other times, it seems like that's not the way in other school systems either. I'm just trying to reconcile that with, boards having to approve transfers between major functions or between major categories. So if I'm the new one at this, and it's clear that a lot of boards don't operate exactly the way that you're describing and what's happened before. I just can't bring those two views together. So I'm asking for any help. It doesn't all have to
Michael,
gel
not to
tonight, though.
interrupt you, and I apologize. I've done it both ways. When I was with Vernon, if I moved money, let's say I needed $100,000 because we had to budget more, we had to move some funds to support a line, another salary line, or let's say we needed more special ed services. If I had a surplus in my healthcare fund, I would take 100,000 out of healthcare and I would transfer it to that 330 line for services with the board's permission. Okay, that we would do when I was with Vernon. When I was with East Granby, they didn't want to see it. So, I mean, it can work both ways. So, I mean, you're not asking for something that's out of the norm. It just will create a little more work on the business office right now.
And probably not what you're looking for.
No, not what I'm looking for, but it is what it is. I mean,
so.
Well, is that something the board would like to see? I don't know. That's a discussion.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Adrian.
I had kind of asked a similar question to this. I think it was last meeting or something, but because I didn't understand either. But I guess I can see the value in Ray. What you're saying is not changing the budget numbers, but maybe if the board were to review and approve expenditures that are over the budgeted amount, so the board had some kind of oversight when a line item is overspent, where we could kind of look into that item and get some detail into why that line item was overspent
Going forward.
Yeah.
okay, so then I'm going to
That
ask
would
a question.
allow us to do it outside of budget as the year kind of progresses.
He doesn't
I'm
like
going to
that.
shut the business office down. I'll tell you that right now.
Why do you say that?
Why? Because a requisition will come through. I can tell you right now, we can shut it down now on the IT side, and we'll send half the teachers home. Because we had a grant that laptops were budgeted against the DoD funding. We no longer have that funding. And I have $138,000 in laptops that we needed to buy. I put it against the IT budget. Eventually that budget is going to go south because it wasn't budgeted for. So therefore, if you want to approve that, I can back off the PO, reverse the PO, but I guarantee you all the laptops will start shutting down,
Yeah,
including the one that's running this system right now.
No, I can appreciate that. I guess I was just talking about some way of the board to know what's going on when a line item is overspent. And maybe it's just a little bit more in detail review of why it was, why they're spent.
Can that be
That I
done?
can provide you.
Can we
I'm
do
sorry,
that
go
when we do the object code, just like to be able to explain why something would have gone over? I mean, I think that when you do an object code summary, you do it every month and we're looking at the ups and the downs of the budget. So I would
Right.
think that we could be putting a little line beside it why something was under or over.
I could do that, but I've also created the narrative to help explain some of that. I can put more detail in the narrative if you like. But I'm afraid that if we have to go to approval on expenditures, you will shut the district down. No, I guarantee it, because I got complaints today because they thought we didn't order copier paper. They just didn't come in until today. Guess what? If I have to wait to order copier paper to run a deficit, I would have referred them to the board for approval. I'm trying to, I have to be given the leeway as the business manager to make some sort of an executive decision to keep the district moving, to keep it running. If not, then you don't need this position.
Yes, we do, because I don't want to be the one doing your job and mine.
Obviously, I apologize. I'm very blunt. I'm very upfront. I say what's on my mind. And
No, that's good,
sometimes
man.
it gets me in trouble, and I apologize up front. So
No, tell us like it is, right?
Yeah, that's what we
That's
want.
what we're gonna hear.
I don't want to see the board tie its own hands. That's the issue that I'm afraid of. I will give you as much detail as you want in the narrative. That I can do.
Matthew and then Dean.
Thank you. Ray, I'm looking at the budget review, the budget summary review, and I have some questions that have not to do with oversight whatsoever or directing you to do one thing or another. I'm looking there, I think six items that in the right-hand column show that we were in the red at roughly 30% or more. And so I'm not interested in trying to cross-examine or find out why this happened or that happened. My question to you is, are there any lessons we can draw from these things that will help us this year?
I would say, for example, I'm going to look at row 4 on the substitutes. I think we under budgeted the substitute line, Matt. Certain things like this, you're again, other professional services, you're 160,000 and 180,000 on row 15 and 16. Those are services that you almost have to provide for special needs in most cases. These services, you're going to roll the dice every year. Now, we know that we're going to spend XYZ dollars. So what we've done in the upcoming budget, I've instructed them, we know what we spent, there's a certain portion of that budget that we know we're going to spend. I already instructed the office staff to create a PO to encumber those so that we know what our spend is on those. What we don't know are the PPTs and the other various services that are coming through that are required for the children. Some of these lines, for example, 331, 332, and 333 object codes, these are all required by law services for the most part. And when we under budget them like that, it's very difficult. You are going to rob Peter to pay Paul, Matt, to be honest with you.
So what I'm taking from what you're saying, and please either validate or correct me, that some of the under budget assumptions that existed in the prior budget have not migrated into the new budget.
Something
if we have some that migrate,
I'd have to validate that, Matt. I'm going to say hopefully not.
I personally, I don't know what the other board thinks. I'd like you to take a look at them, because if they have migrated there and we're unintentionally under budgeting for the coming year, it'd be better to know early than late.
I can give you a quick rundown at the next meeting if you want, Matt.
That'd be
it's
great.
a good,
Thank
that
you
would be
so
a
much.
good comparison. I'll be very honest with you.
Thank you
And
very much.
it'd actually be very useful. So that I can take a look at. I can do it. I can do an analysis to make sure we did budget enough in there.
Okay, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Dean?
I do not view these as separate pots of money. This is a bookkeeping fiction. I'm not in favor of controlling the budget or seeming like we're controlling the budget at the level of, let's take money from, this line and put it on that line. All of these represent our best guesses together with staff of what the budget's going to look like. At the end of the day, the bottom line is what really matters. Now, to the extent we go over or under, that's instructional for the next time we do a budget. You could also be raising red flags as to what's going on this year, because we get these summaries once a month. But I just want to be on record that I'm not in favor of adding any more work to the business office to, as Ray said, basically pretty things up by approving or not approving moving dollars, because we're not really moving anything, as far as I know. It's not like when I move money from a savings account to a checking account. It's even like that, even though they're all my accounts. So all been said before, but I figured I had my hand up. I might as well just put my 2 cents in.
No, thank you, Dean.
That was a
All
quarter,
right, Ray,
Dean.
what about health insurance?
Health insurance, don't make me repeat that first sentence. No. I'm actually going to be doing a review of health insurance and the utilities dashboards in September. Okay. I received it a little late, and I have been swamped with the year end and the audit right now. And we've had some issues within the business department that we're working with as well. So, but I promise we'll get it in the September meeting, not the September 3rd meeting though.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ray, and thank you to your staff. On behalf of the board, we appreciate everything that you and your staff have done for us.
And again, I apologize if I sound like I'm coming off a little rough at times. That's not my intention. It's just my mannerisms. I'm a little, after being in management for many, many years, you learn that you're better off being short and sweet and to the point.
Yeah, hey, I'm with you on that. Short, sweet, and to the point. You know I'm like that. You see, I tried to steer it that way tonight. Short, sweet, to the point. All right, next you're up, Sam.
So, good night.
Good night. I'll catch you later.
Good night, Ray.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good weekend.
Good evening. I'm sorry that Ray is gone now. I've always been considered to be the frumpy one around. Taking over that.
That's okay.
Is your mic on?
It is.
Thank you.
So at our last meeting, I reviewed some things that were going to be taking place during the summer, and I'd just like to go over those quickly so that you know what's. But first of all, I'd like to commend Charles Vaughn, who's our custodial supervisor, and Tom Bingham, who's our maintenance coordinator, who have really run the program really well this summer. A lot of things got done in a timely manner with short staff. As you know, that summertime is a great time for people to take vacation, and custodians and maintenance people like to take vacations too. So they put this whole thing together while people were still on vacations and walking around the schools. And I'm sure Susan noticed today that when she got to the high school, the schools look terrific. So thank you to Charlie and Tom and their staff. So some of the things that we talked about that I talked about at the last meeting were scheduled to be done during the summer. So the gym floors at Fitch High School, Groton Middle School, the Northeast and Kolmaski have been done. They look terrific. The wood chips for the playgrounds that I explained to you about last time at Charles Barn, Colmaskey, Northeast, Mystic River and Thames River, those have all been completed as well. And then the floor tile repair at Fitch High School has been completed as well. And we've sent that invoice on to the contractor who had created the mishap to give the tile, and they've agreed to pay for that, pay that invoice directly to the contractor. We also did the infill at the artificial field. I think I explained to you last time that the infill material, which is a coconut material, was damp and was not, it couldn't go through the machine softly. So our guys actually spread it out in the parking lots on sunny days and then swept it up and put it back in the hopper, and we were able to get the artificial field redone, so it's up and ready for the test. I can't remember the name of the company at the moment, but there'll be a company coming by to actually test the surface for impact, for concussion. So all that infill has been taken care of. We'll have good success when we do that testing within next week or so. Regarding the Barnum roof, it's still working with the architect on putting that packet together, and we'll be coming to the board asking for some permission to go on and submit the application for grant for that, which we will do next summer. The last time I reported that the HVAC filters had come in and we were going to be doing them, well, actually the filter just came in at the end of last week, and so they started today with the filters, the Polyet HVAC filters in the buildings will be done over the course of the next 3 days before the kids are in the buildings. The Groton Middle School scoreboard. Again, the last time I reported that it had gone to the town, to the town manager, but it had not been forwarded on to any of the boards or committees. We've been working with Electric Vote on some stuff, and Mark Romano and the team have worked with Electric Vote, and Electric Vote had some money that was allotted for another item, but that item is not necessary, so they're going to put that money, the $40,000 that they have for the scoreboards at the artificial field and the softball field at Groton Middle School. So that'll be done pretty soon.
Is that the total cost, Sam?
It's $4,200 and some dollars.
No, I think it was actually 4,400. I just found this out, that's how I know. And Mark went to the Booster Club, and the Athletic Booster Club will cover the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've taken care of it.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you have to get any permits to put it up, or you'll set? What?
No, we'll need building, you'll need an electrical permit and a site review by the building department. As soon as we're ready for that, we'll get that into them. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the CIP, which the town will be asking us about very soon. But we do for CIPs, and I think we should consider putting Northeast Academy HVAC systems back into and request those. In the meantime, I'm going to have to get some more realistic numbers, because the last time we got estimates on it were quite a few years ago. So I'll be working with South, and I'll start looking into that and get a realistic number for what it will actually cost these units. For these units. That's what I have on my list for now.
Any questions for Sam? Mike?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned CIPs, because I had my checklist. The Fitch Auditorium CIP is approved, and is just approved. But also at the time, there's a chance of getting a community partnership grant. I was wondering if there's an update on either of those.
Forgive me, I was checking the sound. If it's the community partnership grant, that was part of the discussion of the $141,000 during the last budget process. we did our due diligence to file the paperwork that we needed to get filed. We typically hear by the end of August, as I'm told by officials at the town side. I checked with them Friday morning, got a response. They had not heard and had it blessed by the state as of yet, but we should be getting that at any time. And per our conversations with the town, we wanted to run that process before we spent the $141,000 that was allocated. As soon as that's hopefully approved, then we'll proceed with that process. If it's for some reason not approved, I would very much like to continue and use those $141,000 that was allowed in the CIP for the projects we've discussed for the Fitch Auditorium.
So that'd be during the school year. And as we know, even from hearing about convocation today, that's a very, very heavily used space and it shows in a way. Would there be a timeline to be able to do that during the school year? I mean, I remember it's lighting and seats. It seems like it'd be parts of it could be
I'm
done
gonna let
maybe.
Sam address any seat issues,
Yeah.
but we're going after, if you recall, lighting, sound, and projection improvements. We did everything we could with $0 in the budget to refurbish what we could over the summer, and I'm happy to give anybody a tour and show you what we did. The staff on the IT team is very dedicated, but there are things like some of the large speakers at the front and right and left of the main stage, if you're sitting in the audience, that need to be replaced, and certain things like that. Obviously, we would want to work around some of the high season times, the December concert season and the like, certainly May, June. But I'm confident that with an allocation and appropriate planning that we could work around some of that. Auditorium gets a lot of use first couple of weeks of school, professional development, groups getting together for rules of the road, introductions, things like that. So as long as I have the opportunity to fund it, plan it, and operate around those high seasons, I think we can utilize it as we said we would and make continued improvements in that area.
All right, thank you.
And then, did you want to say anything about the community eligibility program or Ernie's good news about Fitch High School receiving breakfast and lunch free of charge for the next 4 years?
You just did.
I didn't want to take the thing. But it's exciting news.
Yes.
Did you want to, because he had to go through an application and there may be some cost to his revenue that he receives in order to afford this. And he's going to be donating that, in his enterprise fund to cover.
And you all know how fantastic Ernie is anyways, but there's also the state that's doing some evaluations and so they're gonna be asking Ernie to participate in those evaluations that we're doing as well about food services throughout the state, so. Groton, Norwich, another third local time, they were starting. So that will keep Bernie busy as well.
Have we sent out information to parents so Fitch parents know about the CEP and that
Yes,
it's be free? You got it.
there's an extra line too. So it's good.
There is an extra.
Yeah.
You gotta be moving through even quicker now.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Sam, are we applying for any HVAC grants?
There is going to, we just got a letter from the state today, I think it might be coming on Friday, but there's gonna be, they don't know when this new round is gonna be coming, but there's going to be a new round of HVAC grants. So again, we have to follow the state regulations regarding the testing of our systems. We have to do 1/5 of them this year, so we're putting together a bid package so that we can get that stuff done. The difficulty is that when you're doing a recommissioning of an HVAC system, it's really best to be done when nobody's in the building. It's very rarely when nobody's in our building, so we're trying to figure that all out and get that bid out so that we can get that done as soon as possible.
And I think I was hearing December was the deadline for these HVAC grants. But I was told by Andre Baumgardner and Chris Conley that they would be happy to write letters, and I'm sure Heather Summers would do the same, because they were able to help support, I think it was Ledyard, maybe even Stonington, in getting there. So, I think we need to make sure that we get that support.
I don't think they were happy with us last year.
Well, they said, yeah, but there was reason for that because we had sent one in the year before or 6 months before and we didn't get it. So, and I think the town also has to commit to a certain amount of the funding before you go for the grant. So that all has to go through
Right. It's just like
a reimbursement.
right, any of the building, like the roof grant is going to
Yeah.
be a certain percentage
Right.
reimbursable to the state, to the town. But, you have to, the town has to authorize the full expenditure of it, not just the reimbursable part.
Ian?
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to speak before Clint went away from the table, but I was on the understanding that the CIP that was approved, we wanted to get that done so that it could be used during the summer, and to get it done before the school season began. I was under the impression that the CIP had been allocated and that the $141,000 was being put towards renovations that were happening this summer.
So one, we did make some renovations, not nearly as much as I would like. Number two, my understanding was the 141 was allocated. But number three, that my understanding was that we were going to work the process, and I always forget the name of the
I think it's community partnership
Community
grant.
Partnership Fund. And as I dove into that, working with Shannon Weigel, our grant writer, and the town, I was following their timeline and approval by the state. And again, that is end of August.
So the work's not been done and now we're waiting to hear about the grant and so we may return that 141 if we get the grant.
That is my understanding.
And either way, then now we're in a position where we're going to end up doing the work during the school year.
Correct.
It just seems less than ideal and is contrary to my understanding of the situation back when we were advocating for the budget. So I'll just have to make note of that. And I just I'm glad to hear that we found some alternative funding for the Groton Middle School scoreboard, but I'm disappointed to hear that it's that we're gonna have to lean on the boosters to make up a difference. That's I would hope that we would just make the investment, but we gotta look at these things a little further down the line, I guess, ahead of the curve. Thank you.
That it, Sam, for your report?
That's it.
Okay.
I have a question for Sam.
Okay, go ahead, Matthew.
Thank you very much. Sam, this is blue sky, if you will, Sam, but we know that the middle school is pretty short on space, not due to any fault of ours, but because of the way the state mandated the maximum size of the school. And I'm wondering, we are going to be having another boat come in sometime this year. And I wonder if we would have any guess of if we have a plan B of what we're going to do if a significant number of those kids go to the middle school. I'm wondering if there are any portable buildings, whether at a school or behind central office, that could, if there were need, be moved to the campus so that we would have additional space for students. I don't expect an answer now. I just want to raise the question.
Matthew, I'm going to be talking to Miranda. We have conversations regularly during the school year and we meet as military superintendent liaison group. I think it's coming up pretty soon, like September, October. So I will ask her though about, because they can usually get us the information ahead of time before the boat gets here.
Yeah,
At
I
least a
think-
good estimate.
I mean, if we had that information, we wouldn't have to play catch up. We'd be able to plan
Right.
for it. Thank you.
I would rather know ahead of time.
Okay, Dean?
On that, am I correct in my recollection that even if we were to use, say, trailers, the state would have to come in and perform some sort of review and give us an approval, maybe not to the same level as when we've actually built a hard building, but the state still has to come in and okay the space. It wouldn't simply be a matter, I could be wrong now, it would simply be a matter of physically getting a trailer if we had one, setting it up in the middle school grounds,
Mhm.
turning on the lights. Is that correct? State has to come in?
You have to meet all the town's requirements, fire marshal's requirements and so on.
So just local, but not the State Department of Education review?
I'm not aware of anything. from the
Okay.
State Department, but we'll look into it.
We've done it before where we've moved, I think, from Pleasant Valley, something over to Mary Morrison
To Charles Barnum.
or to Charles Barnum.
Yeah, we didn't have there was no state review when we moved.
No, okay, that's nice. They've streamlined it. So you literally could, if you physically move the space, just turn the lights on and voila, you've got a classroom or two.
Provided you meet all the other requirements. but it's
The local requirements, though. Okay.
And we have the Cutler ones behind us at central office, right? Yeah, I think they were the foreign language classrooms.
Adrian?
Yeah, this is going, kind of following up on the middle school. How many students was that building designed for? Do you know?
Number of times,
Is that something that we can,
I can get it.
we can get? Yeah. that was-
I feel
Little
like it was under
calculations.
1,000.
What's that?
I feel like I remember 1,000, but
Yeah, I don't.
we'd have to check on that.
900 and some, I thought it was. I'll look for it and get it for you.
Yeah, I mean, either way, we know we've got a space issue there. I think the community knows it. I'll get into that a little bit later with parent comments, but yeah, if we could have whatever it was designed for, however many kids, because it seems like we have more kids this year already in that school without the boat. And if we get a boat and more kids, and in the next 2 years, I believe there's something like 700 units, like apartment units, like that are going to be opening up in the town between the old William Seeley property and the new tollgate property. And that likely will have some children associated with it, and maybe lots of them. So we need to start talking about this and thinking about what our long-term plan is for the middle school, because it doesn't seem like our population is going to be going down anytime soon.
But the building was designed to have, to add on, at the, end of the wing that is toward Fort Hill, so, you could add on classrooms there. The unfortunate part of that would be that you lose that, bus drop-off area for the special needs kids at the end of that. So you have to reconfigure that somehow, but you can add on to that building. It was planned for. When we do something.
All right. Well, it's probably a discussion for a different day, but it's just something it keeps coming up.
Sam, can you get that and get it to Susan and she could put it in the board notes?
That would be great. Thank you.
All right, next is committee reports, policy, Matthew.
Well, thank you. In July, the policy committee took up discussion of electronic communication, student use of electronic communication devices. We do have a policy that was adopted in 2008 and revised in 2014, but it predates the ubiquitous use of smartphones. You've probably heard a number of articles around the country of different responses to academic performance, alienation, social retardation, other issues that are correlated but not necessarily caused by these phones. So we were going to take a look at this policy. The meeting in July had as guests Matt Brown, Peter Bass, and Clint Kennedy, and we spoke about the need to handshake our current policy as it's communicated in the handbook, and they're well into that, if not completed. Susan can confirm that, but that's in progress. Our meeting tomorrow night will have as our guest Carolyn Wilson, who manages our gas program with Ledgelight Health, and she has experience in surveys, and she has experience with parallel issues with alcohol and drug use, as there are claims that there's actually some addictive quality to the algorithms. I'm trying to avoid taking any positions. I just described that now. it is, we are also going to take up the timing and the composition of our stakeholders on our committee as non-voting affiliates. I'm not speaking for the committee. I know there'll be some discussion about having at least one or more parents, one student from each of the Fitch and the middle school. And who else do we have in there? My handwriting is so bad I can hardly read it. That's had laser surgery today and my eyes are not functioning well. Who else, Susan, besides the students and, oh, faculty, teachers? Holy
Well,
mackerel.
and we also talked about a survey as well.
Yes,
that
and
could
that's Susan, and Carolyn is going to address that, the survey, and then maybe further down the line, if we go further down the line, maybe even have some focus groups. So I hope the discussion tomorrow will talk about the engagement and what kind of timelines we have. The following meeting is going to be the 10th of September. And depending upon what we do now, we may actually be able to get into look at the actual recent policy changes throughout Connecticut. There are about a dozen of them that have happened in the last year or so. And just look at this as a spectrum that goes from free for all with no controls whatsoever, all the way to one district that's been pretty draconian in their policy. I hope we won't be. So that's what we're doing. Go ahead,
Matthew,
Susan.
I did share with the whole board the new guidelines from the State Department, and I would advise that the policy committee take some time with that. We do not have new legislation. We may have new legislation, so it's a little premature to change the policy at this point, but to certainly look at some of the good advice that the State Department is giving us and compare it to how the handbook was much stricter. Basically, in elementary and middle school, devices can come with the student to school and back home again, but they're not to be used in the school setting, and it's to be put away. At the high school, they're not to be used in the classroom, and Matt is tightening that up. So it's not to be teacher by teacher who decides when they can use it. So we're tightening that up too, according to the handbook, and letting parents and kids know. So that's what's happening for this year. And it'll be interesting to see if we see some positive improvements that might also inform our decision. But also legislation would inform, and the State Department guidelines will inform us.
So just for the other full board's knowledge, it's my understanding that both Bev and Ian were also able to join me. We were all remote on a CABE webinar discussing this. I am in the process of writing up my notes about what went on from my perspective at the CABE webinar, and we'll circulate them to the full board. And please add, and it says in the note at the top, I'm asking Bev and Ian if there's anything I got wrong or anything I have missed, if they please comment and add to that so we can keep the board up to date. It is a mandate that school districts consider having a policy. The content of the policy of a given school district is up to the given school district itself. This is a joint statement from the governor's office and the CSED. Of course, as Susan said, the legislature didn't take it up last year. Whether they do this year, we don't know.
I think the webinar was recorded. So if you go on the CABE website.
It's not available yet. I spoke to them today. They said they'd let me know. It's not posted. It's not up yet.
Okay, well, if you go on the CABE website in the future, you'll be able to listen to the recording.
As soon as it's posted, I'll let everybody know.
Okay, curriculum? Okay. Finance and facilities.
We met virtually back on August 6th. Talked about a number of things over our 48-minute meeting. Including where we were in the audit, the fiscal year ending 24 audit. According to our current business manager, the goal is to finalize everything between October 1st and November 1st. We talked about the progress of finding a new business manager At the time, our superintendent said that we had 2 rounds of interviews that were set up. We had put off treehouse finance discussion because we didn't have enough information at the time. Of course, we got a general director of finance report reporting where Mr. Engel reported some savings on fuel oil and diesel. And of course, we had a report from Sam specifically regarding a special ed camp at NEA and the town's recreation camp at Mystic River Middle. And schools are being cleaned up as camps conclude.
Thank you. Andrea, you did get Matthew's email about the financial classes at the high school. He sent the email out.
I know.
Okay.
I'm not done. I have not seen it.
Okay, you did get it, right?
I should.
Okay. All right, ad hoc, budget procedure. Ian, are you still online? Well, you all are meeting this Thursday, correct?
6:45.
6:45, online, okay. Learn, I attended Learn's building, I'm on their building committee, they're building a new early childhood center. And, we just talked to the architects and the construction people about,
Where's it gonna be located?
on Daniels Avenue in Waterford.
Okay.
Where the dual language school used to be, they're tearing that down. Also Learn now, you'll be interested in this, Susan. You know, Learn had the IB program in their regional magnet school. They're doing away with it.
Of the funding.
No, she didn't say that. She said,
Well,
when
she
they
told
ask
me.
parents,
Yeah.
their parents
Oh.
don't seem to be, that, when they ask parents, why did you come to the regional magnet school? They don't say because of the IB program. So, and I.
Well, she said funding was an issue. to me.
Well, funding
Yeah.
and it's not drawing any people,
Right.
so, yeah. Athletic fields? No. Trails, what does trails? Matthew?
Nothing to report. They'll meet
Okay,
in
what about
September.
library, Matthew?
The library, our renamed or unnamed library card initiative with the library is going to have representatives at parents' nights so we can sign up kids for library cards. And at that point, once we know what the demand is, we can arrange for delivery options, but one step at a time.
Okay, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Matthew. Thanks a lot. The next item is consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Have a second? Moved by Dean, seconded by Adrian. Okay. Any discussion? Well, I'd like to thank Costco for donating student backpacks with school supplies, as well as a $500 gift certificate to be used by the Groton Public Schools. And in the backpacks, they had zipper pencil pouches, pocket-style folders, 12-inch rulers, and erasers. So thank you, Costco. That was very nice of you.
And we will make those available to our students who need them.
Do you know how many backpacks exactly?
I feel like there were at least 50, but I'll
50 for each school or 50 in
no,
total?
50 in total,
Okay.
but I'll check. Denise got them.
All right. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of approving the consent calendar agenda? Say aye.
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 Abstentions? Okay, so approved. No old business, new business. Discussion and possible action regarding the withdrawal of the Board of Education's request at its special meeting as of June 6, 2024 for a supplemental appropriation for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. Would somebody like to make a motion?
So moved.
I'll
Okay.
second.
A second? Okay. The motion was made by Matthew and seconded by Dean. Okay, discussion.
Yay,
Are we in the clear? I'm sure we're in the clear.
we're in the clear.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
So when we made this request, I believe the items were attached were to cover the deficit in the FY 2024 year, which we don't have anymore, but also to shore up the health reserves. And so it seems like that might not be a problem, but we're not sure of that. So that other part was there. We asked for larger than just to cover the deficit of the last
Right.
year. So I'm wondering about the health reserve.
That's why I told you the last bit of information, but I haven't seen it on a chart or a graph or a report like we used to get. But as soon as the town manager gets back into town, I will ask him again so we can see it in writing.
I think we have like $3 million in the health
That's what-
reserve.
Yeah.
Mike?
Oh.
Are you okay with that?
I guess we can ask again if we
That's what
need
I
it.
said.
So I was uncomfortable with where our health reserve was left, as
I know.
many of us were.
Yeah, my understanding was that that request was based on money that the town had taken in and not transferred to the board. So it wasn't solely tied to the budget overage, correct? Is that?
Well, at that time, that's what we had anticipated. But I'm not sure that that's what we will receive at this point.
Well, we've talked about this a little bit, and that, in the attorney's opinion, that money should have gone to the Board of Ed. So if we withdraw this motion, are we going back on, on the attorney's statement, that money is actually
No,
owed
I
to the
don't
Board of Ed?
Think so, because I think the way we worded it was to get us through this year for any, if we were in the, red. And then also to be able to sustain our healthcare reserve. I see Jay's hands up. Maybe he can explain it a little better than me.
Well, the only thing I was going to add is we also are now going to make the final payment. We're projected to make the final payment that will go into the insurance account and shore that up even further, which would have been the amount of the projected amount that we would have put in if this request had been approved anyway.
Are you talking about the encumbered last payment, Jay?
Yes. Yeah. So
Okay.
now that, barring any last minute surprises, Ray is intending to make that final payment, which turns out to be about the difference between the projected deficit at the time and the amount we were going to put in the insurance reserve to begin with. So
The first question I need to ask Mr. Burt when he returns is, we need to see the report of the health savings account.
right. Yep. He said that's being prepared by his staff. So
Okay. And then the encumbered last payment. I think it was $375 or something like that.
right.
Go ahead, Adrian.
All right, so just to go back to that it was a June 6th special meeting. The sheet that I have from that meeting shows 1.399,824 was the request. And the line items that lead into that are the federal impact aid so it seems like that calculation was based on money that the town had taken in
At that time.
At that time. I mean, that we know that number's different now.
And
but
we did, and I can get you the exact amount of what was transferred over through special ed. There was quite a bit of revenue that was transferred over, not that much, but there was revenue transferred over.
Yeah, no, I know the special ed,
Right.
was.
And then more
came
money
through.
kept coming in.
But I just want to make sure we're not
Yeah.
conflating the two things, that what we thought we were going to be over budget, which fortunately we're not, was one thing. But the second thing of this motion and how we came up on that number was by going to the money that the town had taken in in the name of education.
Right.
So I guess
Do you have the motion there that it was read into
Yeah.
I think
from
he
that
has
meeting. I just don't have that in front of me.
All right, it says, all right, the motion that was read was to approve that the Board of Education formally request a special appropriation from the town of Groton, which is in line with the excess revenue collected by the town of Groton on behalf of the Board of Education in FY '24. If I'm reading the right one from June 6th meeting.
Yeah, that was right.
That was the proposed motion, is
I
the
think-
actual motion made.
I think
Oh.
the ultimate motion was different, had different wording. I remember.
Yeah, I did. I
Or went back and
Oh.
forth for a
with
bit.
that.
I'll
What was it?
See if I can,
let me see if I can find the minutes from the following.
it took us like 3 tries.
I know.
That's what I remember.
I think we did
Had the minutes.
specify.
Yeah. Yeah.
Two parts that we wanted to take care of any overage that we had
Yeah.
potential. And then also to restore some health savings.
Right.
Looks like later meetings we didn't. I'm looking at other meetings and I don't see that we approved the June 6th minutes. So I don't have the minutes electronically. I don't know if anybody has them.
Is Jay still
What
on
did you-
there?
No, Jay's not there. I'm sorry. What did your motion say that you just read? Can you read it again?
Yeah. So yeah, this is the agenda that I'm reading from. It said to approve that the Board of Education formally request a special appropriation from the town of Groton, which is in line with the excess revenue collected by the town of Groton on behalf of the Board of Education in FY '24.
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
a
we
different
did read
version.
it.
Yeah. I'll see if I can find it. It'll take a moment.
Bev,
All right, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to step away soon, so
Jay, was that the motion that that you read on, that we approved on June 6th? Do you
yeah,
have an
well,
idea?
I mean, I don't know that I have the word for word, but the idea was to cover the deficit and add to the insurance reserve. There is no
Okay,
deficit
that's
now,
what we said.
and about the amount that we were gonna put in the insurance reserve will be made in a final payment from the encumbered funds. So I believe that withdrawing the request from the town council is appropriate at this time.
Is it? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the minutes from June 6th. Yeah, it can be a little confusing. So the last motion. This is why Roberts has the chair restate the motion. It's like the Massachusetts Constitution. There's the original Constitution and like 1,500 amendments to it, so you don't know what you're really reading. So the last thing that we did was we amended the motion to approve that the Board of Ed formally requests a special appropriation from the town of Groton, and which is in line with the excess revenue collected by the town of Groton on behalf of blah, 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 in the amount of 1.399 to offset FY remaining expenses and help restore. That's I don't know how that reads any differently than what you had there, in the proposed. But if I might suggest, if what we're looking to do is to separate these two things, then let's just do that. If we're not looking for quote extra money from the town council, the equivalent of our fourth quarter transfer, but we still want to maintain that we're entitled to those excess funds, then let's just do that. So rather than maybe a blanket withdrawal of our request, we can tailor this to say we're withdrawing our request. Well, what were we requesting? We're looking
Funds
for
to cover the deficit. There is no deficit.
funds to cover the deficit. There is no deficit. Okay, so we can say, we withdraw a request for funding to cover the deficit, but we do not waive our claim to. That's still an open question, is it not? The excess.
Funds.
The
Yeah,
excess
that's still an
funds that's
open
supposed to
question.
come to us, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in favor of the motion. We also want to make it clear that. So I guess I would.
Want to amend the motion?
I would move to amend the motion to add that notwithstanding, we maintain that we do not waive our claim to the whatever the phrase.
Or do we
is for
just bring that back at another time and just let this one thing lie? Because that particular number is no longer the correct number, especially since some revenue has been shifted over to us from special ed, and there might have been a couple other payments. Jay, what do you think about that?
I don't think that by withdrawing this request that we give up any claim.
Right, I
that is
agree. Ted.
Pending for excess impact aid if legally we're entitled to it. I don't think that'll change the basis of that argument, if there is even one to be made. I just don't think that keeping this request out there, when now, we are contemplating a possible need in the current year, is something that we really want to do, but that's.
I'd like to close this, wrap that one up at this point, because I really feel confident that we can.
So you'd like us to approve this motion
Yeah, would you, Jay, you agree, right?
As is.
as is?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, that was my suggestion, is that there is no deficit on which this was based, and the difference was to go into the insurance reserve, and that amount is now going in through the encumbered funds. So
Discussion.
I don't think that gives up any right that
well.
Floyd might be pursuing separately.
I don't think so.
Yeah, now my motion to amend wasn't seconded, so it's not active.
Michael,
So I guess I'm wondering if we put this forward, I think it went into the town council committee, the whole, and never came out of that. Is that right?
oh yeah, it did
Yeah.
go to the town council.
But did it get to did it get out of their committee of the whole? I think
I don't
maybe
think they
not.
ever acted on it.
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think they acted on it.
I think it's just withdrawing from our sake that we don't need
They
it
went and
anymore.
they got their lawyer involved to see about
Yeah.
the excess funds.
But I feel like this is if I'm remembering it right, if it just went to their committee of the whole, that's you hear about this from other governing bodies, that it stalled in committee. It never got out of
Never went-
committee.
Yeah,
So how active is it really? Like, so if I can see what would happen if we rescind this, and but I'm also wondering, if we don't do anything, isn't the effect the same, or are we just communicating?
Yeah,
Or are we
just
trying to communicate a
communicating.
message?
this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's all.
So
Communicating in good faith.
Yeah.
Well, then while we're communicating, want to communicate that we do not waive our claim to the.
Well,
maybe
we're
so.
not waiving our claim. We still
I'm
have.
just
Floyd.
saying,
Oh, okay.
this is symbolic. Let's do the whole symbol.
We still have Floyd investigating that, and Susan's doing it on her
Yeah.
end.
I'm trying
so-
to do grace and gratitude.
Well, the motion, although it sounds like it was added in that it was that we were going to use the money for a couple of things. The motion itself was based on, which is in line with excess revenue collected by the town. So to me, I feel like we're not past that yet, and we don't have anything clear on the table. So I don't feel comfortable voting to me, it seems like we might be giving up claim for that, or at least appearing that way by rescinding the wording in the motion.
Mhm. Matthew?
Well, what I've heard earlier this evening suggests that there's some positive movement relationally with the town council. And far and apart from whether or not such a motion as is on the table now would have some negative legal consequences for us later. I don't think it would, but I'm not an attorney. Adding the proposed but not yet seconded motion from Dean would just seem like an unnecessary burr under the saddle of our repairing relationships. As long as it's not going anywhere from the council, I think let's wait another month and see if we can have the good relationships get better, rather than tell them we're giving it back, but we're holding on our rights to further action. There's no need to be confrontational.
So what are you suggesting, Matthew, that we?
I guess I'm
postpone this?
suggesting, I would probably vote against this motion.
Okay. Any other, Michael?
Well, it just, I mean, what, I don't have a real problem voting for this, because, but just my rationale for voting for it would be that, all the numbers it's based on are obsolete at this point. Because, you know, our FY '24 budget isn't where it stands, where it stood. It may be that our health reserves are different than what the town told us. We work on very old information for that. And actually, we've gotten more funds, additional funds through the town, or the town has received it for educated related reasons. And so all the numbers that cook that together seem obsolete to me. So on that narrow reason, I would be fine with voting for this motion to withdraw it.
Any other discussion?
I guess I would just be in favor of tabling it until the board actually figures out what we're gonna do with what was half of the wording in that motion.
So are you making a motion to table this?
Yeah, I guess I would like to make a motion to table discussion until we further review well, I guess that's ongoing. Dean, you want to help me with wording on that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll second for discussion.
Okay.
So I'll just discuss this. I feel like every time at RTM we try to table something, they said, you should really postpone it to time definite. And I don't
Right.
really know the reasoning for that, but that's what we always end up doing.
So
So
you want to postpone it to
Yeah, I'd
the
like to,
next meeting?
I would like to postpone until we have more information from the attorney.
Until when?
Time definite.
or try the next regular meeting
The
would be
next
good,
regular
right?
meeting.
Next regular meeting.
Okay.
Because otherwise a postponement with no definite time is essentially killing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Adrian has made a motion to postpone this motion
I'll second
until
it.
the next regular meeting in September. And Dean has seconded that.
Poor Joan.
Hmm?
Poor Joan.
Okay.
Well, she has it videotaped.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Any discussion on that?
And I'm very in favor of that. It'd be nice to find out more about the health reserves and everything. We'll get
So
that
I put that on my
information.
list.
Yeah, of course.
Too.
Yeah. So, and it doesn't seem, I mean, this is largely symbolic, doesn't seem that urgent with our reasoning for it to we can wait. So
I'm perfectly happy with postponing it. I'd also be perfectly happy with saying we don't need your money, quote unquote, the town's money. But we're very happy to take our money, the excess.
Yes.
Yeah,
Fun.
I could have voted for the motion, but I'm happy with postponing until the next meeting. That sounds reasonable. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, so we'll vote on the motion to postpone until the next meeting, regular Board of Ed meeting in September. All those in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Aye, okay, the motion carries. So this is being postponed. Adrian.
this one for you.
All right, the next item is discussion and possible action regarding recognition of National IT Professionals Day. Mike, you want to read that motion, please?
Yes. The motion is to recognize September 17th, 2024 as National IT Professionals Day and to direct the superintendent of schools to send a letter of appreciation to the IT staff.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Adrian? Discussion? Nope, I'd just like to thank the IT professionals for all the work they do to keep us connected, keep our students connected, and just thank you.
Thank you, Clint.
It has been very good. Things have been like the meetings, staying late, very late some nights. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
If I may, I'll be brief. Thank you. The letter would be wonderful, and that would be, thank you. Donuts always work too for that. But if I just may take 1 second, I am very privileged. I'm part of a great team. I've had the opportunity to hire some wonderful people. There were wonderful people already in position, so thank you to those who hired them previously. We work hard. We don't always get it right, but we do promise we will try as best we can to get it right to serve students and teachers. So thank you. We appreciate it.
And this is a very busy week between convocation and all the PD in all the buildings. So thank you.
And 3 board.
And 3 board on top of it. But who's counting?
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So approved. Okay.
Apologies. I did get information from Sam. He wanted me to just update everyone regarding the size of GMS very quickly. The building was designed for 938 students at an 85 to 90% capacity, which Sam says means it should accommodate about 1,050 to 1,100 students. That's what he wanted me to share with the board as he was reviewing it on his drive home.
No, my 1,000 was pretty close.
So it's designed for 938 students, but
At 95.
85 to 90%
90, yeah.
capacity.
okay.
That's the, not,
So maxed out, full capacity, if you will, with no room for error would be between 1,050 students and 1,100 students. Again, I'm the messenger.
Thank you. Okay. New business, discussion and possible action regarding approval of added district tuition rates for 2024-2025 school year. And that was attachment number 4. And Susan.
we do have 4 students currently at Fitch High School that pay
Oh, wait,
the,
excuse me, do I have a motion?
Oh, sorry.
first?
For discussion, I'll move it.
Okay, Dean, do I have a second?
Second,
Second, Matthew? Okay, thank you.
so currently we have 4 students who've decided to come to Fitch High School for the International Baccalaureate program. And they do pay the tuition rate each year, which it's a little bit less, a little bit reduced from the average price. I'm just looking for it now, high school. So approved tuition for 23-24 is a little bit up in 24-25, but not much, $15,382. And we have had elementary students before, even in specialized special ed programs. But it's definitely something that could be cost efficient. I know the funds probably go back through the town when they're received. But it may be worth even entertaining at some point. And I know this is a little bit more than a discussion, but being an inter-district magnet where Fitch, you could have other students come to Fitch, and then we would receive funding from the state.
Ah,
And then the districts would provide the other additional funding. Because we're always looking to expand our IB. And I think that's really a jewel in our crown, that there's not many IB schools. East Hartford has one.
Could you let us know how many students actually got an IB diploma this year? Can you
Yeah.
put that in your board notes? Thanks. How do you determine how much to go up on the tuition? Is there a formula? Just guess.
No, there definitely is a formula. I think it's 85% of the actual per pupil spending cost, but I'll double check.
that sounds right.
Does that sound right?
Dean, go ahead.
On that point, yeah, I just did a quick run through and the percentage increases vary quite a bit.
Mhm.
They're not all the same. So whatever the formula is, well,
Is the per pupil cost different in middle school than in high school?
Yeah, there's more expense at the high school. because of the programs and the athletics and, you know, the actual, what we spend at the high school level. The total expenditures of the high school, it's more costly to run a high school than the middle school, than an elementary, than a preschool.
Because when we
So-
see our per pupil cost, we just see one number.
It's like
We
an
don't see,
average.
like,
Yeah,
oh,
but
okay.
it can be
We don't see
broken
it broke
down from the
Would-
different levels.
Yeah, so if you're trying to cover whatever the percentage was, you said 85%.
Mhm.
Okay. So if I get increases ranging from 6.64 to 6.65, 7.2, 0.83 for the high school, for example, does that mean that we're looking at, even though we're looking at per pupil, the real math is done because of the total cost and because there are very different numbers of students in each of these categories? That might account for why there are different percentage increases?
Well, this new chart was probably done by Ray, so I will ask him
Yeah, I'm just
to
wondering
get that
why.
information.
I mean, 6.6 and 7.2, okay, fine, close enough, but then high school is only 0.83%. But the end result, the district's position is the end result of this, is that each of these tuition rates is supposed to represent, when you multiply it out by this number of students we expect, to cover 85% of the actual cost of the program,
Mhm.
or having all the students. Or is it 85% of the cost of per student? Because then this doesn't make any sense.
I'll have
but
to get you
I'm
that
sure there's
information.
a method to the apparent madness.
Mhm.
Mike?
And so since this is for this school year, it sounds like we've got 4 students at Fitch right now. Are there any at the middle school? Like, because we just talked about the capacity issue there,
No,
and none at the elementary school.
not this year.
So, so I see pre-K. We transition K might be a thing later that we'll
Mhm.
start to consider.
See
Okay.
if the funds come back to the board.
And I think I know the answer to this. Student transportation is not within this. They'd have to provide their own
Yes,
transportation.
that's right.
I was wondering about food. So they're at Fitch, and now everyone gets the meals covered through that wonderful grant.
They're
Are
part of the
they
school community.
good.
So when they become a Groton student, paid for with their tuition.
Great,
So they receive all the benefits that students at Fitch receive.
great. That's important because
Mhm.
however you get to Fitch,
Right.
You're a student there.
That's right. And you can see that there's even general education program costs. So there's an extra IB cost, and then there's AP test that would be added to their tuition. Or if it's special needs child, there would be additional funds.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I apologize for kind of reiterating a little bit of what Dean was saying, but yeah, why were the percentage increases so much more in special ed students than IB students? Is there-
Because of the cost of the program. So it's related to the cost of the programs
All right, so it's
divided by the number of kids.
all right, so we're expecting that the special ed is going to cost for ABA program 5,000 more per child
Absolutely. It's a,
this year than it cost last year. Or a little more than that, because we're saying that this number is 85% of actual cost. Is that
right.
so that's with special ed or IB diploma or any.
That's what I recall, but I said I would absolutely check with Ray. That's what I remember Ken was doing, that we had put into place. And even Dave last year, but I'm not sure. I'll have to talk to him.
Do we ever have students come into a district from other districts for special ed?
Absolutely.
And they pay
We
this?
actually had a student who was with us and he moved to Ledyard and he was on the reservation and the Mashantucket supported him staying there because he was being so successful.
Oh, but the tribe paid.
Mhm.
Okay. What about regular people like me and Adrian?
I can't say for certain. I'd have to investigate that. I don't recall. And I do recall that other young man who was at Charles Barnum.
Or are there other districts that can't provide the service in-house, so they choose to use us
Good question.
for a specific need?
Kind of the situation in Ledyard and, but the Mashantucket Pequot tribe did support that and paid for it through their tribe. The school district did not pay for it.
Yeah.
Unless I was an inter-district magnet and had a program, then it would be partly the school's responsibility and partly the state's responsibility to pay. And
All
then
right.
those generated funds could come to us, I think. I'd have to get it.
Deb?
right.
Go ahead, Matthew.
Okay, so high school is 15,382 with a supplement for $2,861. That comes to slightly over, for 4 students, that comes over slightly over $72,000. And my understanding is that the school district gets to keep none of that.
I wouldn't be certain. I'd have to ask the question to see.
Well, I would
What's
like you to ask that question. My second concern is, right now, apparently we have the space to accommodate students who want the quality education that Groton offers. But I think we need to monitor this very carefully with the new boat coming in and with the possible increase of the student body due to all the housing. To be clear that so that we do not overstress our resources, particularly since it's a question as to whether we get any or all of the funds
It's
that are
in the
generated.
policy, Matthew, that it's based on enrollment, that we wouldn't take in a student if we had an enrollment issue in a grade level or. So
Thank you
it's
for the
actually in a
clarification.
policy.
Thank you very much for the clarification.
Any other questions or comments? No. Matthew, you all set?
Only when well, I guess we need to vote on that. I'm fine.
Okay. All those in favor to approve the out-of-district tuition rates for 2024-2025, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Oh,
I was going to just abstain until, so we understand the special ed costs a little better.
okay. One abstention from Adrian until we understand
I'll
the
still get
special ed.
the information.
All right, okay. So that is approved. All right, next on the agenda is information proposals, letters and communications, and comments by board members. Who wants to start? Don't everybody say yes at the same time.
Well, I have a letter I received.
Go ahead, Matthew. Thank you, Matthew.
It came late this afternoon from Mrs. Lewis. I'll just read 2 paragraphs of her note. I have 2 kids who are graduated of Groton Fitch and 2 current students. The hub bus stops were not even on my radar as a possibility and were a shock when I found out last week. Will the town be building bus shelters at the new hub bus stops? What is the town's plan to ensure student safety at these locations? My child's hub stop, Town Hall and Depot Road, is 3.5 miles from our home. Does the town plan on increasing school programming at the Groton Community Center now that it is concentrating students in this area? So that was Mrs. Lewis. I plead ignorance about a decision having been made on hub stops. Maybe it was discussed with us. I just don't recall it. But I will send you this thing. It just came late this afternoon, Susan. I'll send this to you so you can respond.
I already have it and I can respond that when we have inter-district magnet schools, there is no law that says we have to transport them. As a matter of fact, many school districts, Ledger next door and many others are no longer transporting inter-district magnet schools. We have been transporting them, but we have, first it was the New London schools all had hubs and then we moved to Learn. Those schools now have hubs and I talked to the superintendent, gave her the information and they were to get it out to the parents right away. And that decision was made earlier this summer when summer first started. So actually, because by law, we don't have to transport them at all, we made the decision to put these hubs into place, just like we did in New London. And they're in all different parts of town. So our policy about miles and, is for Groton students who are going to Groton schools. there's no policy that says that we have to transport, and no law that says we have to transport to the magnets, but we are transporting to the magnets, but in hubs. And that really is something, and even for Ledyard, we have that going on now. Because of the cost of transportation, we needed to do that. And because of the cost of transportation, other districts are deciding not to provide transportation at all.
Thank you very much. And
Yeah.
you'll respond to her.
And Sam has been taking care of all those calls. We had 2 or 3.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was actually on the other side of one of these 15 years ago. But are we talking about if we were to send children to the magnet school in New London or something like that, that we're not now, at that time, there was a whole group of us because my children attended that school for a little bit. It was state reimbursed. So the cost of busing from Groton to those magnet schools was state reimbursed. Is that not the
There is
case
still
anymore?
a grant, but it gives us very nominal amounts back. So it's really not cost effective to do it all. I mean, it doesn't give us much at all. So, and there's not really that many kids going anymore. So, but there's enough that we could save a bus, but if we do it in hubs, and we can get them there quicker and get them home quicker with the hubs. So it is cost efficient.
Can you get us some information
that would
on
be
what the
Sam.
state grant is and what the actual cost
Yep.
maybe last year was and this year with the hubs?
Michael?
Yeah, so I remember being on the RTM and one year the magnet school buses was used as a rationale to cut the magnet school buses. And I forget if we did or not, but then it was brought up at some point that, well, there's this grant, and so it's almost like a pass through. But what I'm hearing now, if it's a nominal fee, is this a case of where transportation costs, which we know have risen quite a bit,
Are much
gone
higher
up?
than that little bit of grant.
And so the state grant hasn't grown with transportation costs. We see it with the ECS funding, actually.
And it's based on number of
True.
kids and ridership.
Yeah.
And so because that's very inconsistent and that has diminished, that it really, I mean, there's a small amount, and I can find out what that is, that comes back with the state grant. It's much more efficient, and we have saved, remember, I put it in the budget to save 2 or 3 buses, and the way we're able to do that is with some of these magnet runs and doing it in hubs.
And the stop that was mentioned in the letter, I think is, if I heard it right, was the Groton Community Center. I know that's open after school now. I
Right.
wonder, we could talk with the town, see if they open it
I
before
told,
school.
I told Sam I would look into
Yeah.
that, but there's also the library right around the corner that any student can go and do homework and,
Oh, I was thinking before school
school,
too,
so,
like,
yeah.
because I think it's already open after
I
school.
think the
for
mom was
wonderful
asking for
community
after
hours.
school.
Yeah,
This parent, I think.
Yeah.
was asking.
so Park and Rec might be happy to help, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
I did say I would check into that.
We're writing all this down too, what you're checking into.
I, and then I go and I highlight and I check off when I've done it.
Because we expect answers.
Still the teacher.
Any other comments, Dean?
Yeah. It seems like yesterday, but it was probably 6 years ago that my oldest, excuse me, who graduated from Fitch, went off to college. I recall that his impression was, and he went to school in Arizona, and so he met a lot of kids, the vast majority of whom were from either Arizona or California or somewhere out there. In fact, about a third of the student body, I think, at U of A was probably from California kids. His impression, anecdotal as it was that he was far more prepared for college than they were. That included somebody who had even gone to a private school in Los Angeles. So as I sent off my last to college, she started classes today.
At UConn.
At UConn. And my middle one this is his last year. And he's a special kid anyway, so no reports one way or the other about him. But I'll be curious to see how well prepared she feels for college. My personal opinion is that she's been prepared for college for a while. She should just lighten up. That's between me and her. She's got to unwind a little bit.
She's a terrific young woman.
Yeah, but she's got to unwind a little
Is
bit.
she listening?
I do not think.
Parties now.
Too
Dad,
busy-
I'm unwinding.
Busy complaining about the eggs in the morning.
Can we
you
call
know.
decorum on this?
So my thought is,
Violate FERPA.
how well, and I don't know how you would measure this, how well are we doing? I say we, I mean, a lot of it really depends on the kids too. But to the extent the school does have an effect, does prepare kids for college, and again, a lot of it is up to them as well. Do we have a handle on how well our kids do when they go to, and again, I'm not saying college, but like we could start with college because there are also non-college career pathways. But just thinking about college, because all three of mine have gone, do we have a handle on how do we get a handle on how well prepared our kids are for college? And that's a just totally open-ended question. I don't know if anybody's ever, what kind of metrics other than saying, polling the parents. Hey, congratulations, your kid graduated. Congratulations on getting into XYZ college or university. How do you think has your kid told you how your kid feels? It's a little qualitative, again, very anecdotal, but I'd be curious to know. And if we got a lot of good data back, but again, you'd be comparing. Again, my son was doing a comparison. Me from Connecticut versus kids from California. I don't want to get into that kind of a match. We like to say, well, we prepare our kids better than the other states and all that. That's fine.
At one time though, Dean, years ago, how long have you been a professor, Michael? A while.
Since 2005.
Okay, so probably you were a professor then. Colleges were saying that the kids were coming out of high school and they were not prepared.
Yeah.
And that they, like even in community college, they would have to take, what do you call it?
Remedial classes.
Yeah, remedial classes, and the parents are mad because now they have to pay for those remedial classes and
It's been going on a while, both in academia and also in the workforce. From back in the 80s, I can remember employers were complaining that people were being hired out of college and they couldn't seem to put two words together. My mother, whose English language is not first language is not English, was a secretary to a woman who had an MBA from America. And my mother was correcting this woman's grammar. And she had an MBA. I do remember taking sort of an entry level math, where would you fit kind of thing. Now, I'd already taken calculus in high school, so it was easy peasy. But I was looking at the questions thinking, okay, great. I like math and stuff, but wow, you mean there are kids coming into college? I don't care what you're majoring in. Who actually have to be asked some of these questions, kind of basic, So, and I do know that there were remedial classes for kids. I could see in freshman English, there were kids who, it's like they never read a book. I think it's just them, frankly, they just don't like reading. So this has been going on a long time, the lack of preparedness or the apparent lack of preparedness. But I'd be curious to know.
Is that something you could find out? Is that?
I could
Sounds-
absolutely.
I-
I do have
Well, Michael
information,
could
but
help
it's
us
not
with
on
that
the
too.
agenda, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah, no, okay, that's fine.
So we can put that on for a future
Yeah,
agenda
that
item.
would be a good future
And
agenda.
then we can lean on Mike over here to help us out with
Yeah,
that.
because people are paying a lot of money for our public schools. So what are we getting out of it? This, in general. Yeah.
Mine is always anecdotal, like stick market, or when the kids come back and tell me, and it's mostly good information, so.
Adrian,
So I guess to go off of what Dean just said, the NEAS report goes into that, correct? So we have some reports on that that were brought up in budget, and I think that we were shared them. What was it, 20 and 22 or?
Yeah, it was right around COVID.
Yeah, so there was one that was done in COVID and then one that was done 2 years later. But those are pretty interesting reads if you haven't read them, and maybe we should talk
I've
about
always
those as a
wanted to
board.
get their private email, and I think counselors do collect it, but they don't always get all the kids. And then to send out a welcome and how's it going and a school survey, and then maybe a welcome back home at homecoming or Thanksgiving, where they can come and they can talk to the other kids. So that's something I think that they've tried in the past, but I'd love to see that happen, where you could really do an analysis,
Dean, would you want to see that NEAS report? I mean,
That will be buried somewhere in the emails if you sent it out or.
And frequently asked questions.
It's in the FAQ.
But if you need it, we can find it for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. That's something that I've been thinking about for a while, is if we're going to talk about that at some point in a future meeting. I did have some communications with some parents, Dreambox Math. It seems that the parents don't necessarily like it, or at least the parents I've communicated with. I don't want to say this is a district-wide thing, but there was also a lot of teachers in the survey, the IT survey that was done, that weren't really happy with Dreambox Math, and our math scores are not quite as stellar as some of the other districts. So I think it would be great to talk about that in a future meeting at some point.
Can you talk about that in curriculum?
Yeah, we could put that on curriculum. That would be great.
SBAC, and we've seen kids who really are successful with it, have been very successful with SBAC too.
Yeah,
We have results on it. And there are kids that have gone all the way through algebra in, end of elementary. So it is a program that lends itself to gifted kids, but also for kids who need remediation because it goes to their level.
yeah. I guess that wasn't my experience with it with my own kids. And so, but maybe we can,
Yeah,
maybe we
maybe put it
can,
on a
maybe we can talk about it. I think I think if we look at where kids are on grade level, like meeting expectations or below, we're below others. And I think it was great in COVID with remote, because it's kind of a computer-based program, but we have teachers in the front of the classroom, and to have kids going on their computer in class and doing work on a computer when there's a teacher there, just trying to assist 20 kids or however many kids, I just wonder if it's the best use, if it's the best program. And then kind of to go back on communication with a different parent that chose to send their kid out of district because of the middle school crowding and issues that are going on in the middle school. So I believe that parent was going to send their child out of district for a couple of years and then back at Fitch, hopefully. But that was part of my concern when we started talking about the numbers at the middle school. So again, I hope we talk about that a little bit more as a board.
And soon we'll get class sizes. So,
October 1.
okay, so we'll see what the numbers are at the middle school.
Yeah, and we're still waiting on the ones from last year, right?
The what ones?
Oh, the class sizes from last year. I think they were requested in the last meeting.
Can you get that to us?
It was actually your thought to request that, Bev. So I appreciate that.
All right. Oh, good.
She told a great story.
Oh, good. Okay. Any other? Nothing? I just want to send my condolences to Sharon Schick and Joey Schick for the loss of their daughter unexpectedly. My heart goes out to you. I can't even imagine losing a child. So my condolences on behalf of the Board of Education.
And she was there today. And her daughter and her granddaughter was singing, but she wanted to be there.
Also, I forgot to thank Sam and his staff for all the hard work they did this summer, keeping our schools looking spiffy. All right. So we have future meeting dates and calendar items for the board's attention. Anything jump out at you that you don't like, that you like? Dean?
So what is this special? That's a special
That's a meeting for,
BOE meeting.
yeah, we'll talk about the operation review.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Suggested agenda item. So we have, can you talk about staffing at a COW meeting?
What do you want to know about staff?
Well, how are we doing with staffing? Do we have enough paras?
Yeah.
Do we have enough teachers? Do we have enough for whoever?
Okay.
How's the staffing going?
Where would you like that? At a COW maybe?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
And don't forget the $700,000 shortfall. We're gonna talk about that.
Right. Where do you want that?
I don't know.
Forget
Yes,
that.
Jay. Jay can make
I
a,
don't think it's
Different.
exactly gonna be that 700 because I think we're gonna be able to take care of the healthcare costs. So I'll get it down
okay.
and tell you what we're thinking.
Any other suggested agenda items? None?
In that case. Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Dr. Ackerman made a motion to adjourn. Mike seconded. Okay, all those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I thought it was a okay meeting.